If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby. Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. You guys know the drill. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, long time ago now, but thank goodness it enabled me to get all these different podcasts like the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, where we're all over DFS and prop betting, the College Draft Podcast, where we also make picks against the spread during college football season, which is incredible. Now, by the way, we'll be more into NFL draft stuff leading into the College Draft Podcast, which is fantastic. You can always check me out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. Check us out at Ross Tucker Pod. The Ross Tucker Football Podcast is only 3 times a week here in the off season. We dial it back by a couple episodes, but we will still give you your NFL news updates and some great interviews in about 26 minutes or less as you guys are working out or driving to work or whatever. Ross Tucker Football Podcast, just your daily dose to stay in touch with things. Which reminds me, this show is year-round, okay? We're going to obviously recap the Super Bowl today. Steve's going to talk about his Vegas experience. I'll talk about actually getting a chance to be a dad and a fan and take my family to the Super Bowl, which was great. They are Eagles fans. I guess we are Eagles fans since I work for the team. So that was very cool. We got to look at the early Super Bowl odds for next season. They're already out at DraftKings. We'll talk about the betting schedule moving forward. But this is really important, okay? Next week, we'll probably do a season recap, which is sort of the lessons that we learned from this year. If we're being honest, not a great year. We'll get to that in a little bit. But every week on this show, Steve usually has at least 1 or 2 bets for you. And these off-season shows are kind of fun because you can check them out whenever you want. They're not necessarily always as time-sensitive, but we learn a lot. We get to a lot of your email questions. And I know from meeting a bunch of you down in New Orleans that a bunch of you have legitimate strategies, questions, thoughts that you'd love to be able to bounce off someone like Steve. Do it. Send me the email. Do it. Take advantage of any of our sponsors, westshorehome.com/Ross or the Game Time app or whatever it is. Send it to me, Ross at rosstucker.com, which I love. And then you'll go right to the top of our email list, which is incredible. We'll get to at least one email today. He is the star of the show. He is at Fezzik Sports on social media and only at Fezzik Sports, where you can check him out. I said we'll get the season recap from grades last week. Let's start though, Steve, before we get to our experiences, let's start with the numbers for how we did for the Super Bowl, which is to say not great. You know, we both leaned to the Eagles, Steve, getting the 1.5. We obviously should have done a heck of a lot more than just lean in that direction. But for those of you that take our leans and play them, congrats to you. I didn't have any bets on the Super Bowl. I'm not as big of a prop betting guy as Steve, so I didn't have any bets on the Super Bowl. Steve did. Steve, you had 4 prop bets, okay? And one of the 4 came through for you. The first one, you liked the Chiefs over 24.5. They almost snuck in and got there late, but they shouldn't have. I mean, in my mind, the final score was like 40-6. The Eagles were like taking knees with Kenny Pickett at that point. Go ahead, Steve.
Just a terrible pick, completely wrong side, and embarrassed by it because I like the Eagles. I have no excuses. Bad pick.
Yeah, but you know what, Steve? Let's not kid ourselves, okay? All these people, you know, I make a prediction on a lot of different platforms. Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Ross Report on social media. My prediction was that the Chiefs would win 27-24. I thought it would be a close game, and I thought, I'm not going against Mahomes, Andy Reid in a close game. I said on every platform I was on, for the Eagles to win, they needed a 2-score lead late in the game. Well, How about a 5-score lead late in the game? And all these people are there saying, you picked the Chiefs to win. You picked the Chiefs to win. Not a single one of you had the Eagles being up 34-0 or 40-6. If you did, you are lying. And if you did, please show me the betting slips where you made thousands upon thousands of dollars, if not millions, taking the Eagles money line. Because I want to see it, Steve. Because what was the Eagles money line? What did it close at? Do you know?
Well, now that's a great question because a little bit of money trickled in on the Eagles. So I would say the consensus line was Eagles plus 100 and Kansas City minus 110 into a condensed reduced VIG line. But you know what? We always talk about getting the best number. Right here in Vegas, at the Wynn Las Vegas, you could get the Eagles plus 110 and plus 115. At the very same day, there were some places right down the street at Treasure Island you could get Kansas City minus 105. Think about that. It's actually a scalp and arbitrage at two properties that are walking distance from each other.
So let's say you wanted to take advantage of that. How would you do it?
You go to Treasure Island, you say, how much can I bet on Kansas City minus 105? Probably 2,000. You get down on that, you walk down to the Wynn, you bet the Eagles plus 110 for 3,000. You walk back to Treasure Island, you rinse, you repeat. You know, years ago, there was a Super Bowl when the Rams lost to New England. By memory, you could get New England like 5-1 at a property, the Stratosphere, and you could lay minus 400 on the Rams. So those opportunities, I thought they were gone. And it was there this very year.
Okay, so a couple things. I'm not totally understanding the math. So first of all, they only let you get down $2,000?
Yeah, Treasure Island's like a boutique shop. I don't know what the limits would be. I'm just guessing that would be what their maximum.
Okay, because I thought you could put a lot down on the Super Bowl for a money line or for a spread.
And most properties, but it's a very small local book. Yeah.
Okay, and then explain the math. I understand that you're getting a little bit of both sides, but like if the game ends up being like it is, you're still just pushing, right?
No, because if you get minus 105, warning, little math, if you get minus 105 and plus 110, all right, you can, let me just simplify it. It would be like getting plus 100 and plus 105. So you could bet 2,000 at plus 100, and then you could go ahead and bet 1,950 plus 105 and ensure yourself a profit.
Got it. Okay. And then let's say the game let's say you did it for just one bet and it finished the way it was, like, and the Eagles killed them, you would have made what?
Yeah. So you would either you could lock in $50 or you could have a free roll to win 100. I mean, it's not huge, but I mean, it's plus EV.
It's a free roll.
Yeah.
So you're either locking in 50 or you might get 100.
Yes.
So you're getting your steps in, walking back and forth.
And you're getting a little exercise.
So you could just keep doing that?
Yes. I mean, it used to be in the old days. I'm old enough to remember there were like huge scalps that were out there. Those were the days. Now I would have said that would never happen again. And it happened this past Sunday.
Wow. That's crazy. All right. Very, very cool. You know what else is very cool? Drinking Labatt Blue Lights with your friends and living life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. It is delicious beer made by Labatt USA in Buffalo, New York. All right, the next prop bet you had, Steve. You had second half over 24. That you won. That you hit. You were right. Second half's the Super Bowls. There's more points. In this one, the reason why you hit is because the garbage time points by the Chiefs, right? Because it was 24-0 at halftime, right? So then it's 16 points for the Eagles, and the Chiefs scored 6. So it was 22 until those garbage touchdowns.
Yeah, but we had 16 in the third quarter. I think this was the right side. I mean, we've seen this happen before in Super Bowls, a lot of late scoring in the game. So I still go back to, if there was one bet to circle to make next Super Bowl and every Super Bowl, the second half to score more than the first half and the second half over.
Oh, always, right?
Yes.
All right. Then you had A.J. Brown, the over 70 yards. I don't even know how many he had. I mean, they didn't throw it. They didn't need to throw it to him that much.
Well, I knew I was toast on that when he dude caught a 30-yard pass in the first quarter, and he got flagged for playing football. So some incidental contact to the face.
Yeah, what did you think of that? Because I was obviously at the game live.
It was terrible call. It's a type of call that, by the letter of the law, maybe it's a flag. It never gets thrown it rarely gets thrown in the regular season, never in the Super Bowl. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah. I've said this before, Steve, and I've said this on social media a million times. The first thing I would do if I were Roger Goodell, if I were the commissioner, literally the first thing I would do is I would gather all the refs on a conference call. And I'd say, hey guys, number one rule, okay? If you see a penalty, I want you to throw the flag. But if you're not sure, if you're in doubt at all, don't throw the flag. Do not throw it. I don't want you to throw the flag unless you're sure of what you see. Unless you're very, 99% confident. Because I think people can live, Steve, with a play like that, them letting them play, much more so than throwing a flag that is questionable.
Yeah, the only hard part is the repeat offenders. What if we have the Ross Tucker that's holding a little bit on each and every play? And I almost think that refs, and I wanted to ask you as a former player, have you ever been warned by the refs? Do the refs ever say, hey, you're almost lying offside here, I'm going to have to call this? Things like that?
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. They warn the offensive tackles if they're getting back too far. Mm-hmm. They warn the center if I would move the ball up. So I would go up to the ball, okay? The ball's there. And before I would snap it, Steve, I'd move it up a little bit.
Right.
Just a little bit. And they'd be like, yo, Tucker, don't do that again. Because they would notice it, But you have to be real egregious for them to really, but I would gain like an inch or two every play.
Sure. They'd put you on notice, and that put the kibosh on the cheating. Yeah.
Right. But to your point, there are people that have the philosophy as defensive backs to just beat the crap out of the receiver and say that they can't throw it every play. They can't throw the penalty every time, and that you'll eventually wear them down. It's okay to get a couple defensive holding penalties. They'll live with that. All right. So then you had Goddard over 4.5 catches. I don't even remember. Did he caught a ball or two? I don't really remember.
He caught 2 balls. I think lesson learned. I fell victim to the recency bias. Obviously, Philly just had a game where both A.J. Brown looked great and Goddard was the number one target. And I looked at history, and there was only 3 dudes that the Eagles threw to. They threw to Smith. And those two, they don't throw it back.
A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Goddard. I can't believe they threw the ball at Dotson a couple times. That never happens.
Dotson almost got the first touchdown, and Barkley was catching passes. So, you know what? Expect what happened to continue to happen is a fallacy in gambling. Me bad, and it wasn't an aberration. For my clients, I went 4-5. I've had Super Bowls. I'm a little embarrassed. I had a back-to-back Super Bowls that I went 9-1 and 7-1 for my clients. And now I've gone 3 straight Super Bowls, and I've lost in 3 straight Super Bowls. So my 8-year record is still good, but my 3-year record is poor.
Was talking with you guys about Smirnoff all season as the official sponsor of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast and an official vodka partner of the NFL and Super Bowl 59. I love that at Smirnoff, you can get the world's #1 vodka without breaking the bank. I call that Smirnoff Extraordinary. I don't call it that. They call it that, but I go with it because I think it's actually funny in that commercial. They still got those drops with the Smirnoff Extraordinary items, SmirnoffDrops.com. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer and may vary by state. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. Smirnoff, we do game days. How about, Steve, that Jahan Dotson was almost the first touchdown scorer? 70-1. 70-1. Crazy. All right. So for the week, Steve was down 4 units. I was even at 0. For this season, I finished up 14 units. Steve finished up 7.5 units. So we did finish up in terms of our wagers for the year, but obviously you take the VIG into account, not so much, right? However, Steve, maybe most importantly for this show, our best bets for the season: 78 wins, 61 losses, 3 pushes, a 56% strike rate. That's very solid, right?
Yeah, very much so. And, for all those out there, it's really important to mention, we have a spreadsheet. Grades does a great job. All the plays are there. We always, we've done this since inception, where we just show how many games above 500 we are in our picking with our units. If you want to actually go ahead and take a look and put in the vigorish and the like on each and every play, it's right there. It's transparent for all to do so.
Yep. Patreon.com/RT Media. If you want access to that spreadsheet, it's all right there in black and white. By the way, just as an aside, Steve, your other bets that you leaned to last week, you leaned Kelsey under 63 yards. That hit. You leaned Saquon Barkley under 110 rushing yards. That hit. And you leaned under Hurts 36.5 rushing yards. He went over on that, right? What he ended up with?
He had like 70 plus. Yeah. He
had that many?
I don't know his exact number. I stopped paying attention when he went over. Yes.
He had a bunch. All right. I know you were in Vegas. Was there something cool about being in Vegas for the game?
Yeah, 2 observations. Vegas had a massive Super Bowl hangover. So the room rates crashed. You could stay on the strip for strip adjacent for like $4. You still had to pay your resort fee. They were giving away rooms. What happened? Why was demand so low? Well, we had the Super Bowl in Vegas, and the town was very congested. It wasn't much fun. It was hard to get around. It was difficult. And I think a whole bunch of people who come to Vegas all the time for the Super Bowl, who went last year, said, too much of a hassle, too much traffic. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I think Vegas really suffered from that this year.
Wow. That's interesting. I think I talked about it more on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, so I won't belabor the point here. It was very cool to be able to take my family to a game. As you guys know that listen to this show or watch us, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I call over 30 games a year. Start early August with the Eagles preseason games, those 3, a bunch of TV for CBS, a bunch of radio for Westwood One. To actually be able to just be a dad and a fan and take my family to the game, that was cool. And it was my daughter's 13th birthday, and thank goodness they won. And it was actually like a stress-free environment. It was amazing. Like the whole second half was just a party. It was just absolutely incredible. Highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to do stuff like that, to do it. And you guys know the app I use to get tickets. It's fantastic. So, all right, what about, Steve? There's a couple different things I want to get into. Sort of the betting schedule moving forward and the Super Bowl odds. The only thing I'm seeing up right now, okay, you can get Super Bowl odds, you can get champion specials to win the division, you can get winning the conference odds. Oh, no, the winning conference of the Super Bowl, whether it's the AFC or the NFC. You can pick the division. I like this bet, Steve. You can pick a first-time Super Bowl winner. No is minus 200. Yes is plus 150. So you're getting the Texans and the Lions and the Bengals and the Bills. You're getting a bunch of those teams to be able to do it. Gosh, they already have props out for Jaden Daniels and some of these guys. They have team specials out for different teams. They have the MVP odds for next year. Do you look at any of these, Steve? Do you look at any of these, futures right now, right after the season?
My first take, and I just criticized myself for looking at last week's results, and it hurt me in my Super Bowl betting. The Eagles are going to be tough to beat, really tough to beat in the NFC, all right? And I'm looking around, and who is their competition? Detroit loses their coordinators. Minnesota has no quarterback. I guess Green Bay. There's nobody in the South. I think the Niners window has passed. Now the AFC, obviously, Baltimore and Buffalo are stacked, and the Bengals are a contender if they can get their defense together, and the Chiefs are still there. But I think for a season win number for the Eagles, I might have to make it 12, Ross. We talked about 11.5. I think 11.5 is too low. What do you think for 12 for an Eagles season win?
Well, I think this. They are going to lose Kellen Moore, which hurts. And they do have some free agents like Zach Ball, the all-pro linebacker, Milton Williams, the D tackle, Mekhi Becton, their right guard. That said, Steve, I think you'd have a tough time looking at a team that wins a Super Bowl coming back with as many core players as the Eagles. And not just this year, Steve, but these guys are under contract for years. They're core guys, okay? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Mailata, Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, they're all under contract at least 2 more years. At least 2 more. Defensively, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Nakobe Dean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. I mean, they have a core group of very good players that are going to be very good for a while. Like, it would be a major upset if they don't win double-digit games next year. Now, I haven't looked at their schedule to see. I know they're going to have to play the Lions. They're going to have to play the other teams. I wonder if what's better, season win total bet or to bet them to win the NFC.
Yeah, I think they're the only team that I could recommend to winning the NFC. We always talk about do the mechanical parlay and the like. Well, think about it. If the Eagles roll through the NFC and have the best record, then they're going to be laying 6.5 and 7 in their 2 playoff games, and they're going to be 50-50. You know, they're going to be plus 100 to win the NFC at that point. Hey, kudos to the Rams. Talk about a missed opportunity. The Rams almost stole that game when they were playing in Philly.
In
Rams
the snow.
They could be Super Bowl champs. The Rams, legitimately, in retrospect, knowing what we know now, Rams would have probably beaten Washington, and they certainly could have won the Super Bowl.
The other crazy thing to me, I think about, Steve, is Hurts did not play very well against the Packers or the Rams, and the Eagles won both those games.
Yes.
He played very well in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl. He played his best when it mattered the most. But the Eagles still would have won those last 2 games, even if he didn't play very well. So the Eagles could have won the Super Bowl 4 playoff games without their quarterback ever really playing well. Like that I thought, you said you thought that would never happen again in terms of the arbitrage opportunity. I would have thought that would never happen again, that you can win 4 playoff games and win the Super Bowl without your quarterback playing particularly well in any of those games. But they won the last 2 games essentially by 30 points. I mean, they really, even if he just played okay, they would have won those games.
Sure. And well, to be honest, I mean, remember, the Broncos won with Peyton Manning that got benched for Osweiler. And,
Good point.
And
Good
to
point.
be fair, Manning had noodle arm, but he was the master at calling audibles and getting them in the right formations. And there's a lot of value to that. But they were still a 6-point dog against Carolina, and they won with defense.
Got it. All right, Steve, tell me about sort of your betting schedule moving forward, whether it's football or other sports. Here we are, February 11th. Next week, we're going to do a season in review with our guy Grades, or one of the next couple weeks. I got to confirm that with Grades first. And he'll go through, and he always knows what we really did well, what really hurt us, and we take a lot of value from that. My question is, what do you look at in terms of betting over the next, few weeks and months? Do you bet any of these Super Bowl odds or any of these awards that are up at DraftKings, or do you wait for the season win total numbers?
I wait. I do NBA. I do college basketball through March Madness. In fact, I'm going to give best bet right now. Oklahoma City. I don't see how they don't win their conference. I mean, obviously they could lose. They're a little bit of an underdog versus the field. This Oklahoma City Thunder team is in the Western Conference plus 105. They are stacked. They are beating their opponents by 13 points per game, and there's one game that really puts me on them. They're in a bad spot. They're in a fatigue spot at Memphis. Memphis has the second best record in the conference, and they whacked Memphis. They crushed Memphis in their crib. Here's a team that is so much better than the rest of the West, but the West has big names and superstars with Denver and the Lakers and the like. Oklahoma City's going to win the West. Plus 100, best bet.
Wow, love it. See, I told you, no matter what, our guy Steve will have a best bet for you guys every week here on the Even Money podcast. I can't emphasize this enough to follow him on social media at Fezzik Sports. It's actually entertaining. He's getting in a fight with some guy that I don't know that well on social media. They're going to have a bet for $100,000. Steve, we'll talk about that next week because I need to learn a little bit more about that. And I just realized we are about to run out of time because it's always important to me to try to keep this thing about 26 minutes at the most for you guys, for your commutes. Do not miss next week's episode. Steve has a $100,000 head-to-head bet. Other than that, good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.